Okay, so welcome to Workforce Planning Connect webinar. So we're not only going to take you through today's Workforce Planning Connect toolkit, but more importantly, we're going to talk about the significant benefits of workforce planning itself and why it is increasingly becoming a more critical component of business success, particularly for small business. So Jobs Queensland is pleased to have partnered with CCRQ in the development of these simple and practical tools and resources that will enable all businesses, big and small, to undertake effective workforce planning. So a little bit about Jobs Queensland before we start. If you haven't already heard, Jobs Queensland is an independent government statutory entity that provides advice to government on a range of workforce issues, including workforce planning and development. Jobs Queensland and CCRQ work together to make these resources available to all Queensland businesses. So let's get started. Okay, next slide. Okay, so who is workforce planning helpful for? So the toolkit was developed, as I said, with small to medium enterprises in front of mind. These resources also directly respond to a small business community for practical, easy to use tools to support them to implement workforce planning practices. We all know that many businesses are unfamiliar with workforce planning or not entirely confident in this area. So with that in mind, the process we've detailed in this toolkit is designed to help businesses who are in a position to build their knowledge and capability in the workforce planning space, who have a need, sometimes very urgent and an immediate need, to respond to changes in their workforce. And that could look like key staff resigning, winning a new contract, or say the introduction of some new machinery. Businesses who want to explore opportunities for growth and expansion. Those who are ready, willing, and to look at their future of their business and ensure that their workforce is positioned to underpin their success. And in the development of these tools, we actually worked with a few businesses across Queensland. And one of those was a cabinet making firm that was located in Loganholme. And just talking about how undertaking workforce planning is beneficial to a business is that they shared with us their plans of expansion over a 12 to 18 month period. And that included opening a second operational site on the north side of Brisbane. So that site was actually being considered up at North Lakes. So if we think geographically, North Lakes and Loganholme, definitely two opposite ends of the spectrum of the southeast corner. And while they'd thought about the business planning and budgetary aspects of the growth, they hadn't fully considered the people and the skills they'd need to help them achieve all of these growth. So some of that's included what part of the existing staff from the existing site would actually go up to the new site that was being set up. How would they make sure that the culture and the team environment that they'd created at the local, in their local one, as in the Loganholme one, would replicate, and they would continue to see that success because they saw that part of their success was how they had built the team. And also then just logistical things for those team members who were going to be considered for relocation, e.g. most of them lived within a 20-minute drive of where they were. Now they were going to have to consider, a trek over to North Lakes, which for those who are familiar with Brisbane's geographical disbursement, it's not a quick trip and it's definitely more than 20 minutes. So through these tools and resources, and after we spent some time with them and helped them to identify the tangible benefits of workforce planning for their business, they were able to understand the principles of workforce planning and establish practices that will support them in taking their business to the next level. And for that meant a successful opening at a new site and having things up and running. So following our discussions with them, they have moved to that new site. And as we all know, COVID caused a few unplanned interruptions last year, but they had thought through different scenarios and different things. So I know that they found this tool useful. So why is workforce planning important for small business? Well, I've just talked you through one example of a business who has benefited from thinking through workforce planning in a structured way. And I guess what you'll find is most businesses are actually undertaking workforce planning in some way, shape or form already. What most businesses aren't doing this is in a structured, considered way and integrated with other facets of their business activities. So a good workforce, excuse me, a good workforce plan will give you a solid understanding of your current workforce and how to prepare your workforce for the future. We know that a small business often relies on the skills and knowledge of a small number of employees. And when any one of those employees decides to leave, it can cause a problem. So when done effectively, it can deliver many benefits and positive outcomes. So workforce planning that is effectively integrated with business strategy and planning can benefit business through reducing employee turnover and the skill shortages in key areas, identify training and development needs of the workforce as workforce requirements change. They can attract staff to key roles and retain them in key positions. And they can seek to identify and improve productivity, job satisfaction, and employee engagement at all business levels. So these benefits can come through and look and feel differently depending on which of these, I guess, benefits that they look like. So some of them can be direct financial benefits. So we know that if there's a reduction in turnover, that can help reduce costs of a business. So if someone, and how that looks in real life is someone who leaves, if they're in a sales role or has had a key relationship with customers, the loss of that knowledge can be really important for a business in terms of continuity. Depending on the nature of the business that that person may move on to next, they may or may not take those customers and those relationships with them, and that can impact on a business. So that's one way it can look at. Other ones include, we know when people are engaged, love their jobs and turn up, they will commit more and do more for a business, and they will bring more skills and knowledge that they have to that. So I'm just going to do a quick stop at the moment and check if we've got any questions at the chat function coming through. It's looking pretty quiet here. More than happy to take questions during this conversation. Just drop them up in that chat room and we will just stop periodically to them and keep working. Okay. So workforce planning is about getting the right people with the right skills in the right times and at the right roles. So before we even start to explore the workforce planning toolkit, it's important to understand workforce planning itself and how it continues to benefit small business. And you are going to hear me say benefit small business a lot because and actually not just small business, but any business, because it is very true. The key elements of workforce planning are about getting the right people with the right skills at the right role to underpin success of a business. So a good workforce plan enables a business to gain a solid understanding of their current workforce and explore what their future workforce might need to look like in order for them to achieve their business goals. People are at the core of every business, and the workforce of the business is a key contributor to the success of that business. And for many businesses, the skills, capability, and experiences of their employees, along with the engagement and commitment of those employees, can be a critical element of their competitive advantage or value proposition. It's also important to recognise that there are different levels of workforce planning that can be considered within the business. One is operational focused. This can look like a business has received a resignation of a worker and they need to consider now and what they're going to do in response to that. So they can consider a couple of options. They can look like extending existing staff hours if they've got part-time team that they can do that for. They can decide to recruit for that role as it currently stands or not fill it at all, or maybe even just do something different with that role entirely because they're now seeing this as an opportunity to do something else. Another way of looking at workforce planning is from tactical perspective, and that's about looking what is planned at your business over the next 12 months and consider how your workforce will support the achievement of those business goals. And when you look at that 12-month period, generally that would be considered within, say, what I would call a business planning cycle. So most businesses would have a group of what I would call trusted advisors that they would seek regular information, feedback, direction from, and they could be people like accountants, financial planners, other key industry stakeholders, and they would go, right, this is what I want to achieve over the next 12 months. And that might be a growth in your business, it might be just sustaining your business, and it might actually be, I'm going to close the business down for whatever reason. It doesn't matter what the rationale is, your workforce will be impacted by these. So thinking about that and planning for it in a structured way is actually really useful for everybody. And finally, we've got strategic planning. So this is a view of 3+ years, and that's for your business and where the workforce needs to position for the future. Now, taking longer term views for workforce is actually important. I know we're in an environment at the moment where businesses are going, I can't think past the end of the next 3 months. However, skills and training and developing people don't happen overnight. So if you're not thinking about your workforce in context of what you want to achieve for your business, you will experience challenges and difficulties in that. So Workforce Planning Connect has primarily been developed to consider the tactical and strategic elements of your workforce, though you may also find this useful for the operational requirements as well. So what does workforce planning involve? The message we want to convey through these tools is that workforce planning can be successful without being complicated. And then what we have done is break down the process into 4 key steps that underpin any workforce planning process, no matter how simple or complex the business may be. The first step is to get started. So in this stage, we consider exploring the concept of workforce planning, and I've just taken you through some of those ideas. Understand why it's important to your business and consider who should be involved in your workforce planning activities. So, and this is actually really important because doing this in isolation without engaging people within your business, and they could look like key management, decision makers, and other employees, you can sometimes miss opportunities if you just sit in a little silo and do this by yourself. And those opportunities are around the benefits of thinking, bouncing ideas off each other, and then actually understanding what can be done easily versus what might take a little bit more effort. So when you're in this stage, and it's also useful to understand what you do have, and the information we use in workforce planning includes like employee data, and data is always a good starting point for decision making. Most businesses may respond, or I shouldn't say most, but some businesses may respond to say that they don't have any workforce data. An easy place to start is your payroll data, because most people will have that. And that just gives you some really basic demographics of your workforce. And that's a good baseline to start on. There's other things you may not have, which might be able to be easily collected, such as skills and qualifications of that workforce. And once again, that might be, you do know these things, maybe just capture it and write it down so it's there as a point of reference if it's not already there. Otherwise, have conversations with your workforce. You may find that most of your workforce has skills and experiences that could benefit your business that actually aren't directly related to the job they are already doing. And so therefore, your business may have opportunities open up to them as a result of that. And then the other thing is, what's most important is there's no point in doing a plan if you're not going to think about what are the actions coming out of it and who's going to implement them and who's going to drive them. So we've got to make sure that when you're starting this process, just like when you're thinking about your business plan and getting on with delivering your products and services, that someone's committed to actually seeing it through, and the work fundamentally doesn't become a dust bunny. The next stage is about gathering the information. So this is about aligning what is happening with your business, its goals and its operating environment for whatever period of time you're thinking about the plan, regardless whether that's 12 months, 2 years or 3 years. And it's a good idea to think about where you're heading and what you actually want to use the workforce plan for. So if you're thinking about expanding your business, that's one of the focuses of the workforce plan. If you're thinking about just maintaining your business and you don't want to grow, you just want another awesome, successful year, that's okay. That's a perfect start as well. And then think about your future workforce requirements and then how that could be. Because even if you want to sustain your business may undergo change over the next 12 months or that planning period. The third stage in this, or the third step in this, is identify your issues and find your solutions. So we've got your identified workforce gaps and risks. So that's when you go through that gathering information. So that's, what workforce you have, what workforce you need, and sometimes there will be a gap. And once you've got that gap, that's where you've got to go. What am I going to do about that gap? That gap can look like a number of different things, and I will go through the range of, strategies and actions you can go and consider in that. And then we've got to put that plan into place. And finally, we develop that plan, we implement it, and we monitor its progress against the goals that you're trying to achieve with your workforce. The other important thing to do is this isn't just a one-off activity. To actually gain the benefit out of this, you actually need to make sure it's integrated into other key business planning activities, and it's reviewed each time there are key changes to your business as well. So I'm just going to actually just break up the workforce planning cycle a little bit at the moment, just to actually, rather than just have the stages, see how the process looks. So as you can see, I've spoken about identifying your business goals, your current workforce, You forecast your future needs. So that can be not just skills and training, but it might actually be about increasing staff levels as well. So you may go, I'm going to expand. What do those team members look like? Those new team members look like? What roles are they going to look like, as in, are they going to be, if you're in a manufacturing environment, are they going to be in production? Are they going to be a team supervisor? Maybe you actually need to bring in a part-time accountant or someone to run your accounts type area. It's like, what does that look like? And when do you think you're actually going to want to have them on board, on the ground, ready to start work? Because that will also influence, you just went past, you're right. Sorry, we just jumped ahead a little bit there. We are also going to need to think about when you want them to start, because then you go, right, it's going to take me on average, say 8 weeks to advertise, go through that, identify the person and recruit. And I've just picked a notional time frame, by the way. So therefore you need to know that 8 weeks out from when you want that person to start, you're going to need to advertise and start thinking about those channels. So it's about knowing where those gaps are. And what I've just spoken through is about thinking about the strategies and actions to address that. And when you capture all these, that's your workforce plan. So just broken up that cycle a little bit more so you can just see a bit more of a visual into it as well. Okay, the next one is once again thinking about how this fits into your business and its business planning cycle. So ideally, to maximise benefits of workforce planning, it should be integrated into your business plan. So this will be ensuring that you have the right people and the right workforce. You need to build the best team available to you. And when you think about your business, most businesses will think about the product or service they're going to deliver. They'll think about how they're going to deliver it. You'll think about where you're going to deliver it. You'll think about your price point of those things. That'll all flow into your finance plan. That'll flow into your operating plan. And then businesses need a marketing plan of some description. Even if your marketing plan is relying on word of mouth, you actually need to think about, how do I promote my business? How do I market my business? How do I find them customers for my business? Not all businesses then actually pull a workforce plan in. And this is where the workforce plan sits. It's in that business thing, because as I've said a number of times, and we'll continue to say, the workforce is the key to success for your business. And it's also the key to failure if you fail to plan for it as well. So, and then the workforce plan, it can have a number of components. This isn't an exhaustive list, but at the same time, it's not, you don't have to have everything here in the first plan, in the first iteration, but you do think about the skills and occupations of the existing workforce, as well as your future, your number of employees, what are the training and development needs, the location and the workforce costs. The other actually item I don't think I covered off earlier on, which just triggered again when we talk about the training and development, is if you think about the other skills and workforce information that you might have that you can collect from your workforce, it could sit around what we broadly call diversity. So you can think about whether or not any of your team, or you can identify if any of your team have, say, other languages or have other skills that they don't normally draw on, and your benefit could business or open up new markets as well. Okay, so what are the workforce planning strategies and what do they look like? Actually, I might just, no, it still doesn't look like we've got any questions. Oh, you guys are easy. Thank you. I'm really appreciating this. So I guess, what are the workforce planning strategies that could look like in this group and in terms of responding to the gaps that your workforce has got? So we have broken these into 4 key areas. The first one sits around developing your existing workforce skills and training and capability. So how you develop people can range from on-the-job training, mentoring and coaching, sending them off onto those sort of like just-in-time training courses that aren't accredited but are incredibly useful for your business. It can be through accredited training, regardless whether that's through a certificate or a vocational sort of training or formal qualifications, such as university degrees or TAFE certificate. We can also attract new employees to address skill gaps. And when you're thinking about attracting employees, you've got to think about, where do you find these types of employees? What are the markets? Where are the channels that they normally would read so that they can become aware of the opportunities that are sitting in your workforce and that they want to come and work for you? We're also talking about retaining valued employees, and I did touch on some of that earlier on. So the benefit of actually doing these activities is, at least definitely the first three, is that if you have conversations with your existing team members, you can actually understand, if they're willing to share with you, what maybe their plans are. So if they're thinking about, say, moving because they're in that age group, or they're in that life stage, I should say, it's not about an age group, but a life stage of where they are looking to start a family, and they're in an environment or a location that their family support isn't there, and they're going, yep, we're going to move. We expect that this will be in 12 to 18 months. You can have conversations as to whether or not there's an opportunity to retain that person and how you might do that for a little bit longer. But at the same time, it also gives you a really good opportunity to think about in advance when you're going to need to start thinking about replacing them, but also what strategies like mentoring and coaching for other employees that employee can give to you, or succession planning if there's someone else that's clearly ready to take their position when they leave, and you can invest in that training and development to make sure that that handover is really smooth and the impact on your business isn't as critical as it possibly could be. The other thing that we know exists through all businesses is there's constant change, and it's really important to help manage and support your business through change. And even if it isn't about growth, it could be just the adoption of new technologies. We know during COVID and the business responses to that period is that we saw a lot of adoption of technological platforms and tools in businesses got actually accelerated and compressed within a 12-month period. And that level of adoption of technological support in a business, that was in some cases 10 years compressed into the last 12 months. And so that's big in terms of thinking about the changes on how people operate, what are the processes, what are your workflows, who does what, and how does it do. And if you've just gone and adopted new, online sales tools, for example, that's actually a new skill that's now coming into your business. And how have you done that? Has someone existing there got the skills and ability to do that? So therefore, that's an added benefit you've got from that individual, or you've actually had to outsource that. So clearly, when you're thinking about those things, they're the responses. And then once you've got whatever that new change is happening, individuals need to know what's going to impact them, how it's going to impact them, and what do they need to do about it. Okay, so where do I start? So I've just given you lots of information. So you can visit the website and download the toolkit. So we have a lot of resources available on our toolkit and our resources. So the website contains downloadable tools that includes a high-level workforce planning guide that just gives you an overview of the key stages and key steps of the workforce planning process. The toolkit gives you a bit more detail and information regarding each of the steps within workforce planning, as well as how to do them, especially around some of that data collection as well. We also have a range of fact sheets, tools and templates. So those fact sheets are there just to provide a bit more information on different topics within that. But there's also the tools and templates are Word and Excel based documents, and they are downloadable, and we've kept them logo free so that you can, as a business, put your own logos on there and actually make it look and feel like your own business documents. So you can add stuff in, you can take stuff out, whatever you'd like to do to make it right for you. So the resources can also be found on the Business Queensland website. So on the Business Queensland website, you'll also find, if you're not familiar with this website already, other related topics to workforce, and that can include taking on new staff, helping put some performance management in place. And can I just say, when we say performance management, it's not always a bad thing. It's actually improving people's performance so that they can possibly, say, be promoted or take on higher level duties and those sorts of things. I probably should call them performance development. And then we've also got some other information around there around different awards and those sorts of things. So the workforce planning resources that we've developed, they are just talking through the process. The content of some of these things you might want to put in there are going through that as well. Okay, so the next one for the resources available, this is definitely at a higher level, but we know people will be interested, but it's actually quite useful for those who are thinking about workforce planning as well. So this workforce planning resource is called Anticipating Future Skills. It's heavily used across region and industry workforce planning. However, for individual businesses who might be in specific locations, you can actually drill down and have a look at by occupation, what's sitting or what are the numbers sitting in each of the areas that you're living in. So for example, if you're in Wide Bay, you could go and have a look at a particular industry such as ag and fishery and go, I want to have a look at a particular occupation, see how many, say, farm managers are in this area. And you can actually see that there might be, I don't know, I'm just going to pick a random number, 50 farm managers in the area. So therefore, that'll give you an indication of if you want an experienced farm manager, that's possibly the size of the pool of the workforce that you're able to identify. So it's just a resource there. Okay, so just some questions. If you want some more questions, feel free to drop them into the chat. I can see one sitting here, which is talking about across a variety of sectors, the lack of able to find staff. How is this being addressed in the process? Well, the magic wand. So this process isn't about being able to give all the answers or all of a sudden just being able to wave a wand and just, you know, drift someone up. What it does is it helps people think and businesses think about what are the different types of processes, not processes, pools of workers that may be available to them. And it's about thinking outside the square in workforce responses. So if you've got a scarcity of workers, businesses also need to be prepared to think differently around the type of worker that they've traditionally employed to what they might need to do now. I see a lot of businesses going, we want experience, we want experience, we want experience. But we're also not seeing a lot of businesses, but I shouldn't say a lot, but we are seeing businesses that aren't prepared to invest in training and skills of people as well. So that will continue to perpetuate the shortage of skills that exists within the market. 2019, and I'm just going off on a tangent here, but a 2019 survey by CCIQ indicated that small businesses, only 13% of them were prepared or had planned to invest in training and development of their staff. So if you think about only 13% were planning on it, and that doesn't negate the fact that some people just might do it without thinking about it after that survey got taken. And then it's showing a big gap in the market that you've got employers and businesses who will experience shortages because, as a broad statement, there isn't a high level of investment in training and skills there. So it will be, it's not about being able to solve, I'll go world peace on this one, but we are in a tough labour market at the moment, that's acknowledged. It's probably one of the hardest labour markets for employers for a while across different industries. And I think this will also have people think about what is it that they can do differently. I see businesses not considering what they need to stop and focus on other things as well. So we talk about productivity improvements and those sorts of things. So it's probably a long-winded response to that question, but there isn't an easy answer. It's just lots of different things. Have we got any other questions coming through? Okay, well, feel free to drop any other questions in the chat there at the moment. That would be great. But otherwise, if you think about anything at the end, feel free to reach out. Okay, so staying connected with us. So if you are interested in any of the work that Jobs Queensland is doing, you can subscribe to our e-news through our website. You can follow us on LinkedIn and you can find us on Twitter, and our handle on Twitter is @JobsQLD. If you've got any questions regarding any of these resources in terms of the workforce planning and our other workforce planning resources, feel free to reach out and contact myself. More than happy to help provide any answers or direction that you can as well. Okay, and that's our Workforce Planning Connect tools and resources.